Hey folks, thanks for tuning in to Go North, where I bring you interesting stories, people, and history of this wonderful Great White North country which we reside, Canada. Hey, all right folks, today is part 2 of a really great story that we started a couple of weeks ago with my good friend Cyril Getty. Now he started out, we've heard all the way from his family moving from Norway to the US to Canada, and we've gotten about to maybe the 1960s now, I guess. And we're in southern Alberta, sheep farming, which you're going to find completely fascinating as I have. So in any case, let's turn it over to Cyril and find out a little bit more about this great history.
Yeah, right on. Thanks for this part 2 type thing, eh?
Yeah, you bet.
Yeah, for sure. Last time we mentioned how the Gleddies got into the sheep, and it was... they knew nothing about it. They went by what other people had told them. And I think the whole looking back at it, it was kind of like, well, we want to get out of it, so we'll see if we can talk someone else getting into it. Because I mentioned how my grandfather was offered 300 head of sheep for $3 a piece type thing, and which comes out to $300, and he didn't have the ready cash. Went to the bank and couldn't get it, so he basically did some other things to raise the money to get those sheep, and from that they built a herd up to 7,000 head type thing.
Yeah.
And one thing that I failed to mention last time is, we talked about, all involved, the lambing and the shearing and the spraying and all the rest of it. And then as we were talking, I remembered another story about sheep. When they're pregnant and before they've been sheared and everything, they're kind of like top heavy. And if they don't lay on perfectly level ground, and I've even seen sheep where you kind of wonder, how in the world did they get on their back? And it doesn't take long for them to die if they're on their back. So you have to go and you got to set them back up. And it's like they got vertigo. They got to stagger around for a while and get back on their feet again. And if you're not watching sheep all the time, you can actually lose a lot of them. It doesn't take very uneven ground for them to get on their back for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. But once they've had their lambs and once they've been sheared and everything, it's the hazard is not as great type thing, eh? We also talked about the dirty 30s, mm-hmm. How dry it was. Everybody, I think anybody, especially in the farming area and all the rest of it, they've heard about the dirty 30s and everything. And people were moving out even in 1919 and 1920. Things were that bad. And in 1930, the Gleddies and some neighbors that had livestock, they got permission from the government to go to Gleason, and Gleason from Alderson is 90 miles or 145 kilometers. Mm-hmm. And of course, your horse and wagon and whatever. Well, anyway, they got permission to go to the Blackfoot Reserve at Gleason to cut hay. And they ended up spending all summer there putting hay up. And you got to understand what is involved in haying at that time. You got a horse-drawn mower, so you got a team of horses. You got this mower. It's only got a 5-foot cutting sickle, and you're cutting all of this stuff. And then you got another team of horses that are pulling a dump rake. It's called. It pulls the hay, and then you lift it up and it dumps, and then you come the other way and it dumps. So you get these windrows type thing. And then they have, and I have pictures of this machine that you actually hook it behind a hay rack, and the horses straddle the row of hay and the wagon or the hay rack, and this thing, it lifts the hay up and it dumps it into the hay rack. Oh. So you got someone in the hay rack that is leveling this stuff out. And they go back and forth, and then they got to go and by hand unload all of this hay.
So nothing's baled. This is all
nothing.
This is back in a loose stack.
It's all
would build a stack.
Yeah, they didn't even have balers back then, eh? So it's all loose hay type thing, eh?
Yeah.
And so they make these stacks, and they're doing this all summer. And then once they get all of this collection and everything done, now they have to load it back onto these racks and take it to the railroad tracks and fork it all onto, it was probably box cars. They would load all this hay into that, and then they shipped all of this all by hand. Everything is by hand. And then they get to, the train gets to Alderson. Now they got to unload it into the racks and haul it 1.5 miles north to the farm. And I have pictures of the homestead there, bottom of the hill and everything. They have these long stacks of hay. And the only saving grace to this whole thing is that the CPR didn't charge them for hauling the hay. Things were that tough that they were actually able to get the hay all the way from Gleason, all the way back to Alderson, and then they could feed their livestock and everything. But you think about it, this would be a crew of my grandfather, and I believe it was just 3 of his sons. They left Uncle Joe, who was the youngest one, I believe. They left him back home to do the chores, milk the cows and feed the.
Somebody had to stay back and do the farm.
Exactly, yeah, exactly right. There was still livestock and chickens to feed and eggs to pick and all the rest of it to help Mom get the things done at home. But they spent all summer at Gleason cutting, stacking, hauling all of this hay to get it there so they could feed all of these sheep and livestock for the winter months type thing until spring come again. So yeah, it's really a long process when you start looking at the whole thing. Well, Gleason, and I believe that was in 1930 that this happened. The Eastern irrigation started, I don't know if people have heard about the EID, because there's also the West irrigation district also, which is further west, like Strathmore and all in that area. But we were on the eastern end of the Eastern irrigation district, and it was just new. It was just started in 1935, and Tilly is right on the very edge of it. Well, things are so dry in Alderson for all of this time, and it was so much work just to collect feed and everything for all of these animals that they were looking for greener pastures, I'll put it that way. And I mean, Gleason, like I said, it was a long, long ways away, 90 miles or 100 and some odd kilometers away type thing. So,
and that's walking speed.
Yeah, exactly right. Well,
where you need to go.
Exactly. So how did they get all of this equipment to Gleason? Well, they loaded it onto hay racks. And they hauled it all up there. Then they had to unload it. And you got to wonder, some of this equipment is fairly heavy. So how did they do that back then type thing, I really don't know how they did it. And some of the equipment like this.
Hats off to those guys.
Exactly right. Like this machine that I told you about that actually conveys the hay up onto, it's fairly big. So they must have just pulled it because it's on wheels and everything. But they must have just pulled it there behind the horses or something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, they were looking for greener pastures, and they knew that around Tilly there was the irrigation and all the rest of it. So they started buying hay out of there, and but that was quite a bit of work too, because they'd get up early in the morning, and they would drive horse and rack to Tilly, and then they would load this hay onto these hay racks, and they would haul it back all the way to Alderson again and unload it, have supper, go to bed, get up in the morning, and they would go and do this again.
Yeah.
They were hauling all of this hay out of Tilly. And then they heard about the EID had inherited or purchased, or I'm not even sure, the CPR experimental farm was in Tilly. And the experimental farm, this is where they had, well, on the place that we had 2 big hip roof barns, and excuse me, one was what we called the sheep barn, and the other one was the horse barn. And when you go inside, they had special racks and all the rest of it for these horses. Like you see all these horse show horses back at that time. They have these nice curved necks and all the rest of it. Well, they had these feed racks up like that, so the horses actually had to stand and eat the hay up here, and that kept their necks in the proper shape for show and all the rest of it type thing, eh? Because if they're reaching down on the ground, it's not the same type thing, eh?
Yeah.
So they had to go in and kind of renovate the horse barn so they could milk the cows and that in there and all the rest of it. Our place was just, well, I'm getting jumping ahead here. They had the opportunity to buy this CPR experimental farm from the Eastern Irrigation District type thing. So, and that was in 1937. They bought it. Well, here's, this is a lot of land. This is a lot of buildings and all the rest of it. And the picture will show basically how big the whole place was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they didn't have the cash. Like I've been saying, everything was tight. They're working to buy 300 head of sheep, at $3 a piece.
In this drought time,
in
the
drought,
land is not producing itself.
Exactly right.
Exactly
right. So anything that you're making is basically from livestock. Yeah. You're not making it from growing grain or anything like that, because everything was so dry. Sure, they'd throw seeds in the ground in the spring. Well, you had to depend on the rain for this, but in Tilly, now you got Eastern Irrigation District.
Yeah. Okay.
So
they changed things.
They changed things. So they made a deal with the Eastern Irrigation District to buy this land. So what they did, and this is the craziest thing. They basically traded some ewes. They took 1,050 of their best ewes, and basically the value of it was for $5.50 a piece.
Oh yeah.
They sold these 1,050 sheep, which brought them $5,000. So they made a down payment of $5,000, and it actually was that $5,000 actually went for a little bit of payment for the next year. I was saying last time that when the government came and said, we want that land back, and my uncle said, well, when do you want to do this? And they said, well, right now. And so my uncle said, well, no, you owe us X amount of money then. And they go, well, we always pay a year in advance.
Oh.
So when they
that bought them another year in that.
Exactly right, which worked out well for us, because we were able to go in there and clear out our lambing camp and all of the shelters and all the rest of this stuff, eh?
Yeah.
And I was saying that, even on this experimental farm, I'm not sure where the people lived. If they lived in Brooks, or I'm not even sure where it was, because now they had to move in houses into this place. So they moved a house in for my Uncle Stian, they moved a house in for my grandfather, and they moved a house in for my parents, who were born in married in 37 type thing, eh? And that's when they bought the irrigation farm, the CPR experimental farm type thing. So everything was starting from grassroots again.
Mm-hmm. Your mom and dad just got married here.
Just got married.
Here, then.
Exactly right. And my uncle Stian, my dad and uncle were in partnership for 47 years. And when my parents got married, it was a Sunday afternoon. And before they left for Medicine Hat on their short honeymoon type thing, Uncle Stian said to my dad, well, remember, tomorrow we're haying type thing, eh? So Sunday afternoon, they drive to Medicine Hat, and they stay overnight. The next morning, they get up and go to the photographer, have some pictures taken, and they're back home by noon to get to work in the afternoon. What a honeymoon, eh?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, they
well, the sunshine, so there's work to do.
Exactly right.
Getting married, we'll give you a day off, day and a half.
Yeah,
back by noon.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So yeah, so now they've got this irrigation farm, and the deal was, okay, we give you this down payment of $5,000, and some of that money goes towards next year's payment type thing. We know nothing about Here again, they bought sheep. They didn't know anything about sheep. Now they're buying irrigation land. They know nothing about irrigation land because they just come from dry land farming. And my grandfather came from Wisconsin where he had to clear trees out and blow stumps and all the rest of it. Work. So anyway,
things are looking up. He got rid of all the stumps. He's in grassland.
Exactly.
Now, if he could just get some water on there, he'd be happy.
We'll be
looking a little better.
Exactly. Like I said, greener pastures are ahead of us type thing, eh? Well, anyway, they know nothing about irrigation, but the EID said, oh, no problem. We'll send some surveyors out there. We'll show you where to put the ditches in and all the rest of this stuff. So, okay, that happened. They're going to learn type thing.
Yeah.
Well, as I said last time, sometimes you learn by your mistakes. And unfortunately, I think that happens to all of us.
Yeah.
We learn by our mistakes.
Yeah.
What they were showing is that you take some earth from the low spots and you build a ditch to the high spots to get the water there type thing, eh?
Yeah.
Which turned out, they realized even after the very first year, this is backwards.
Mm.
You take the high spots and you moved into the low spots, and now all of a sudden you got nice level land.
Oh, yeah. Right.
So the next year, after all of this hard work, the first year of trying to get water to these high spots to grow something, now they go out there with horse, and the first thing that they used was a Fresno type thing, and it's just kind of like a big bucket, and it's all manpower. The horses are pulling this thing, and you kind of scoop the earth, and when you get to where you want to dump this ground, then you lift the thing up and the horses pull ahead and it dumps it there, and you go back and you dig some more, and so you're going basically around a circle, taking earth off of the high spot and putting it into the low spots type thing, eh?
I have such a respect for those guys working hard like that. Can you imagine that nowadays?
Oh.
So nowadays, a guy wouldn't even do it unless he had a closed cab, air-conditioned and heated backhoe.
Exactly.
If we gave him anything less than that, he'd say, no, I'm not even going to do it.
Exactly.
Those guys,
yeah.
So it's often respect.
Exactly right.
Family working so hard.
Exactly right. And you have to understand that this Fresno, it's only 3 feet wide.
Yeah.
And it's about 3 feet long, and it's got a back on it that's about a foot high type thing. So and these horses are, I mean, you just don't scoop off dirt easily type thing. This is hard dirt type.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So they also had to go out there and loosen up a lot of this stuff.
Break it first.
Break it up and everything,
right,
so they could move this.
Yeah.
So they did that the first year with the Fresno, and then the next year they got what was called a tumblebug type thing. Well, it's about 6 feet wide, but it's only about 2 feet deep type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't have to tip the whole thing up because it's called the tumblebug type thing, eh? So, but you're driving a team of horses and you're scooping up this earth and you're moving along. And they did that for a few years. So they're slowly getting this land leveled out from what it was before. It was a total disaster, my dad said. It was unbelievable. These guys that sold this land to them and said, oh yeah, this irrigation country is just absolutely fantastic. But you have to understand, down in that country, we don't have big hills.
Mm-hmm.
It's just rolling type thing. So maybe your low spots might be maybe 5-6 feet lower than the top of the hill type thing. But now what we're doing is we're taking these hills and we're putting them into the low spots to make the whole land level.
Mm-hmm.
So they did that with horse and Fresno and then tumblebug, and then they got modern. They went and bought a tractor, and
right. That's his first tractor on the farm.
First tractor on the farm. Everything up until that time.
Approximate even?
I don't remember the year type thing, and it was before my time, so I'm just going by the stories that I was told. But
your dad's time, no, a few years after he'd gotten married there in 30s.
Exactly, at 37, yeah, exactly right. So it was a little bit after that.
Okay, right on.
And so it was probably, 40 or something like that, 41, 42, I'm not even sure what it was. But they bought a tractor, and a killifer. Now, you can still buy killifers today, but to look at that on, would you go out there and start leveling land with a killifer? Basically, a killifer is used for, well, we used one for kind of cleaning the feedlots or moving snow or something like that. It's not, and I remember my cousin even, he hooked the killifer on behind a tractor and went over and cleared the snow off the ice so we could skate, type thing. And unfortunately, at the edge of the stock pond, it was a little bit not thick enough ice, and he kind of sunk the tractor through the ice, so they had to get another tractor, hire a tractor to come in and pull the tractor out of the ice, type thing, before it froze in. And yeah, so killifer, I believe, if I remember right, they're like 8, 9, 10 feet wide or something like that, and they're only about maybe 2.5 feet high. So, and it just goes up and down with hydraulic, and so you're just kind of pulling. You're not loading. You're just pulling dirt. So you're pulling it off, type thing. And I can remember. Then we went to what was called a soil mover, and it wasn't all that big. It was maybe about 5 feet wide, maybe 6 feet wide or something rather like that. It was kind of like a square, and it would scoop up earth and everything, and then dump it to the back. So it was kind of like scoop up here this way and then over there and dump that way, and they go around. And they actually built some dams down in grazing country and everything too. And so they worked a whole lot better than with a horse and Fresno and Tumblebug and this and that.
I bet.
And then they progressed again to an Eversman type thing, and it was a whole lot bigger. And I leveled a lot of land with an Eversman. So all of our farmland. And we didn't farm a whole lot. We only farmed 500 acres. But you have to understand, when it's irrigation and everything, and we weren't raising anything for sale. Everything that we raised was for feed. So we basically we grew oats, barley, and alfalfa, and our big thing was alfalfa, and we rotated through. We never had alfalfa for more than 4 years, normally about 3 years, and then you plow it up and then you seed it into barley or oats or something like that. So it's a whole rotation type thing.
You did a lot of crop rotation. Yeah, I imagine. You weren't fertilizing back then. I mean, that was available or not?
We hauled a lot of manure.
Yeah, natural only.
Out of the feedlots.
The sheep were doing their job too, I guess.
And cattle also. Yeah. Cattle. So that was one of the fall jobs before snow was flying or anything. Before you got the livestock into the feedlots and everything, you'd clean them all out and haul all of this manure out. And then there was Murray Cattle Company, or Murray Ranches and Murray Feedlots, 3 companies just across the road from us. And they said, come in here, because they didn't farm. They had farmland, but they didn't farm. And they said, you come in here and you can have all the manure you want for cleaning it out of here. Okay? So we used to spend like a month every fall hauling manure out of their feedlots and all the rest of it, because they used to run like 10,000 or whatever head of cattle in their feedlots. They had a lot of cattle in there.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of manure to haul.
Yeah.
So between our feedlots and their feedlots, so that's the fertilizer that we hauled onto our fields, which was a whole lot better.
Yeah.
But going back to the leveling process, I leveled year after year. After the crops were off and everything, I'd go there, and the government, they were good. They would, if we went to their office or phoned them up or whatever and said, can we get a surveyor to come out? And they would survey, and all of our fields were quarter section, 160 acres type thing. And they would come out and they would run lines on all of these things, and then we could mark, cut 6 inches here and fill 4 inches there, and that's what we did. And I leveled every field that we had on our place. And so it was good.
We 500 acres?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you always say we only had 500 acres. That
Yeah.
sounds like a pretty big spread already,
Yeah. And
especially working by hand, one tractor, a few horses.
exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. Uh, and then actually, later on, after I had leveled it all, it still wasn't perfect. And so we had the surveyors come into what we call the second grade,
Oh,
and then we hired them. So the companies come in. We used to do different outfits. So they came in and they had laser on their
oh yeah.
machines, on their Terex and everything, and they'd come in and so the land was beautiful. In a half mile, it was a 10 or 12 foot drop from top to bottom,
Mm,
and every 63 feet apart, we would have a dike, and a dike is only maybe 12 inches high type thing,
uh-huh.
and we had what was called a diker. He just hooks onto the back of the tractor, and it's on the 3-point hitch type thing, and you go down and it brings just a skim of your dirt from a distance out, and it brings it in and just builds this dike that's about 12 inches high.
Yeah.
And then at the top of the field, you have what we call a delivery ditch, and you could either use siphons or you could just break the bank, and it would take about 12 hours for the water to cover that 63 feet and go down the half mile, and it was completely flooded. Well,
Oh,
when the water got to the far end of the field, you'd think, well, maybe it was just wasted. But we had pasture land that we would actually collect that water, and then it would go onto the
oh,
pasture land.
yeah.
So even our pastures were irrigated, a lot of them. They weren't leveled.
Mm-hmm.
So, the little knolls or whatever that were on there, they didn't get the water, but
Mm-hmm.
they kind of benefited by having the water beside them type thing, eh?
Right.
So there was no wastage. And so that was really good. So we were able to raise a lot of our own feed. But now we're talking about how many animals do we have? See, down in that
Mm-hmm.
country, it was basically how many acres you had to have for one head of, where up here in the northern Alberta and everything, is how many head you can have on an acre. So it was exact opposite down
Oh,
there type thing, eh?
yeah. Yeah.
So we purchased a lot of, and I don't know if I remember this, mentioned this last time, but we helped basically all of the farmers in the community. Um, if they had hailed out crops, or even if they had good crops, we would buy their straw from them. And like a lot of, I had two uncles out there, and they raised peas, and so they would, after combining the peas and everything, we would go out and bale up all the pea straw,
Oh,
and that was just like candy to the animals, this pea
oh,
straw type
oh
thing,
yeah.
because there was a certain amount of, still some peas or whatever in there.
Mm-hmm.
And we used the wheat straw for bedding in the corrals, and ourselves, we always cut our grain. And I'm going to step back a bit. We didn't have a combine
Right.
until I believe it was 1960, and everything before that uh, was a binder. I don't know if people understand today what a binder was, but it made bundles. So it cuts the grain and it puts a string around the center of it.
Oh
And
yeah.
so,
Like
man,
bushels. In the old days, they call it by per bushel or something like.
well, no, that's the grain that comes off of it. These are bundles,
Okay.
and each bundle is about, that big around, I would guess, something like that. And of
Yeah.
course, in the irrigation country, our grain was, growing up, and the types of grains that we had back then had a lot of straw, which was good.
Mm-hmm.
And now they don't want a lot of straw. They just want the heads on there with, so they've made, and I don't know
They've
even,
modified it so the grain only, I notice, only grows
it only grows
about
X
maybe
high, but
5
they
or
got
whatever.
big heads on them type
Right.
thing, which back when we were feeding, and we always cut our grain a little bit green, and had all these bundles and all the rest of it. And for years and years and years, and I have a picture there where there's 4 racks, a team of horses, and I'm on the far rack. And I was probably 16 at the time, but I'm out there, team of horses, forking these bundles, Well, first of all, we'll go back again. We got the binder, and there's a guy on the binder, and there's me on the tractor pulling this thing, and you get an X amount of bundles in there, and then you dump it, and you go and now you have these rows of bundles. Now they got to come and stook them.
Mm-hmm.
So you got all these hired men out there. They're making stooks.
Which is to take the bundles and put 4 or 5 together
exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's about 8 bundles in a stook type thing.
Okay. I love that word. Stook.
Exactly right. Yeah, you got bundles, you got stooks. Yeah, exactly. And then we would go and we would stack these bundles type thing. So we're forking them into hay rack, and then we didn't have to fork them off. Luckily enough, my dad, we had a full farmhand, and he could grasp all of these bundles out of the racks and everything like that, and then we had these long stacks of bundles type thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And then in the wintertime, my dad would use the grapple fork, and he'd put them onto the racks, and we could go out and we could fork them off to the sheep. And of course, here they have the head of grain on there, and we
The whole thing.
the whole thing.
Oh, okay.
And we mixed it. We had oats and barley mixed together, so they're getting oats and barley.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with that whole thing is that there's a lot of wastage.
All that straw, then all that stock.
Well, no, they eat that.
Oh,
Oh yeah, that's why we were cutting it greener,
Oh,
because they could do that.
Oh.
But what happens is when you're handling a bundle that many times, a lot of the heads fall off.
Oh yeah, okay.
So here you might have a rack, and it's got all of these. So we would try to go and clean it out where the sheep could actually eat it or what things like that. But a lot of times we were loading these bundles onto the truck and hauling them down to the lease land, to the herds down there before we even bring them home. And if it wasn't a bad winter, sometimes we didn't even bring all of the sheep in closer to home type thing, eh?
Yeah.
So we'd spend all winter, on a good winter, we'd spend all winter hauling them down, which is 13, 15 miles east type thing, eh?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a lot of work. It wasn't until 1960. I'm going to take a little step back. For how many years, my dad and uncle actually, because they owned a thrashing machine, and they always needed, in harvest, you always need extra help. And so we had the thrashing machine, and these other farmers would come and they would help us thrash, or maybe we would even go to their place and thrash first. But they're paying us to use our thrashing machine, but they're also hauling. So it was you'd have 3 or 4 different farmers, they're all working together, and we had the thrashing machine, and we were all helping each other, and it was a great time of fellowship. Dinner time, it was around the big table, and everybody's eating and telling jokes and all the rest of the stuff, and you go to the next place, and it was the same thing, because it was part of the whole program, is that you feed the crew type thing, eh?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And we don't have that today. I mean, you take a look at the Amish and everything, how they work, or even the Hutterites. It's a family affair. They all eat together. They all do this stuff. And that's one of the things that I didn't have a whole lot of that, but like the lambing camp, you got all these guys sitting around the long table, and harvest time, you got, and a lot of times like coffee, and you always took out coffee and lunch in the afternoon, because these guys are working hard. They're forking bundles,
Yeah.
and so
So then they would be brought out to them, right out in the fields where they're working. You bring them lunch.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, exactly right. And it was a community affair type thing, eh? But jumping ahead again, anytime that a farmer wanted to sell straw or whatever, and we even bought grain because we didn't grow a lot of grain. So we're helping all the farmers, and if they got hailed out, we always went out there and we baled the stuff up and paid them a good price for all of this feed. And when we actually got a baler, and I don't remember exactly, I think it was probably around 1960 that we bought our first baler. So up until then, it was kind of like everything was loose type thing,
Yeah.
or bundles or whatever. And then when we started going out and baling up other people's crops or straw or whatever and hauling all this stuff home, we literally, I wouldn't even know where to start counting. I know 1 year I put up 20,000 bales, just myself.
Is this by like could you handle them by hand?
You could handle them by hand.
Yeah.
In fact,
How heavy?
when we hauled from the country, and this sounds crazy, my oldest brother did a lot of this. He spent literally all summer out in the community baling up people's hailed out crops or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And we had what was called a buncher. And it was pulled behind the baler, so it'd go along and then he'd pull the rope after the buncher would get full. And so there might be, I don't know, I don't remember, 8-10 bales in a bunch type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we would come along with a truck and hay rack or a tractor and hay racks, and we would fork these bales onto the truck or and now you look at it and go, okay, these must be pretty light bales.
Yeah. No.
Not everybody could do it. Like my oldest brother could not fork a bale.
Oh, yeah.
My uncle couldn't fork a bale. A couple of the hired men that we had difficulty forking a bale, so that didn't matter because they could be on the rack and
yeah,
doing that thing.
But the guys that could,
exactly right.
They're on the bales.
My dad could do it, and my next older brother, who's 9 years older than me, could fork bales, and I learned at a very young age I could fork bales. Well, people say, well, they must be pretty light bales. Well, straw bales they're lighter type thing. They're maybe 60, 80 pounds type thing.
Light?
Yeah.
Heavy to me.
And then people go, a fork, we have two types of forks. We got a bundle fork, which has tines that are about 12 inches long.
Yeah.
And a bale fork, they're only 6 inches long, but they're a little heavier. Mm-hmm. And there are three tongs from each of these forks type things. So it's a bundle fork, it's 3 times. And with a bale fork, it's still 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And an alfalfa bale is anywhere's, the bales that we did, because they were the larger side, they were 16 by 18, not the 14 by 18 by 36 or 38 inches long type thing. So they weighed, alfalfa bale would weigh anywhere between 100 and 130 pounds.
Oh.
And we're forking them.
Because you got to stab that sucker, and the reason you fork is you got to get it up high over the racks.
Exactly. To throw them up onto the rack.
Good Lord.
And my brother Lyle and I
didn't need a gym membership back then.
We didn't need a gym membership. Didn't even know what that was. Type thing, eh?
Well, you slept good at night, huh?
We slept good at night. And I'm jumping ahead here a little bit, but yeah. I can remember I was in such good shape at that time, and my parents had bought me a bed that was a little longer because I was 6'4". And a lot of beds were a little bit short, but I literally had to sleep on my stomach with my arms over the edge of the bed because I'm not bragging here, I had so many muscles. I have poor circulation in my arms anyway. Like my hands will get cold before anybody else's. Mm-hmm. But just to keep my hands from falling asleep or getting cold in the middle of the summertime, I had to have them over the edge because I had so many muscles type thing, from forking all of these bales. And my brother and I, up until I left the ranch and came up here with the paramedic service in 77, in November of 76, I was still forking bales every day. And those were alfalfa bales. They weren't just light straw bales or anything like that.
115 pounds or so.
Yeah, exactly right. And like I can remember my my sister-in-law, my oldest brother's wife. My brother Lyle and I did all of the handling of the bales basically, and my dad and Trevor, they kind of just fed the livestock around home. And of course, they didn't have to fork. All you had to do, because we had the stacks there, all you had to do is just pop the strings off and dump them over the edge of the stack type thing to feed the livestock, eh? Mm-hmm. And so my brother Lyle and I, every day we were loading up 100 bales onto each rack to feed the range cows. And then when we get them fed, then we would load up and haul some home because there's feedlots there and they're using up bales every day also type thing. So, and we didn't do that every day of the week. Like Monday, for one, we had to load up because we wouldn't reload on Sunday. So Monday we would load, feed the cows, load up again, and we wouldn't bring home that day. We'd load up for Tuesday type thing. And then Tuesday we would go out and feed the livestock and then come back and load up and bring a load home to build up the stacks at home type thing. So we're forking anywhere between 400 and 600 bales a day type thing.
Wow.
And you have to understand, when I say 400 to 600 bales, I'm handling 400 to 600 bales.
Not the whole crew, yourself.
Just myself, because my brother, he was on the stack and he would throw them down onto the rack and I would take and with a fork and place them onto the rack type thing, eh? And vice versa, you know, so each of us are handling those bales, each one of those bales every day type thing. So that's a lot of work. So, and going back again to the thrashing machine, we bought one of the last thrashing machines that John Deere made, and it had rubber tires on it. Everything else before that, like I have a couple pictures of thrashing machines, and it didn't have rubber tires. They had old steel wheels on it type thing.
Oh, yeah.
And all of the equipment that we had, because we were on the CPR experimental farm, it had all these buildings. It had machine sheds, it had barns, it had all of this stuff on it.
Nice.
And so all of our machines were parked inside. And the fall, after the thrasher machine was done for the year type thing, and one year, there was so much moisture, and it sounds crazy. Here we are in dry country, in the desert and everything.
Yeah.
Christmas Eve, they actually parked the thrashing machine. They actually had to break the ice, or when they pushed the stook over to load it onto the rack, they had to break the ice, and the mice were running all over the place because, you know, there was so many mice and everything because of all of the feed out there. But they actually parked the thrasher machine on Christmas Eve, and then between Christmas and New Year's, they went out and cleaned the thrashing machine out and then put it into the machine shed for the winter type thing. But Gladys bought the last, and I believe it was in 1955, they bought the last thrashing machine that John Deere made, and it had rubber tires on it. And I can only remember using it twice. And I thought this was such a great deal, man. I'm forking bundles into a thrasher machine, and the straw's coming out there, and the grain is going into a truck here, and man, this is really fantastic type thing, eh? But most of the grain fields that we had just went into bundles, and then we hauled them to the sheep and everything. But when we sold the sheep, we didn't need bundles anymore. So then my uncle decided, and this is after a lot of influence from my father. He was after my uncle for a number of years. We got to get a combine. We got to get a combine. We're wasting way too much grain. We have these crops that are yielding like you wouldn't believe because of the irrigation.
But handled 4 or 5 times, each time losing some in the grain out of the heads.
Exactly right.
Ends up to be quite a bit in the end process.
Exactly right. So they bought a second-hand pull-type combine, and it came out of the Medicine Hat area. And they pulled it from Medicine Hat, 60 miles to Tilly, and we hooked onto it with our tractor, and went out. And I can remember my dad and I. My dad, when he had the thrasher machine, he was the engineer. He was the guy that was adjusting everything and greasing. And with a thrasher machine, you have a person that just handles that all day, the whole day, while the other guys are hauling bundles in and all the rest of it. One man is actually the engineer of this whole thing. He is greasing making sure everything is going right and all the rest of it, eh? And my father did that for years. Well, when we bought a combine, he said, well, this is new. I'll have to learn how to do this type thing, eh? Because you got these little levers and so much wind, and for oats it'd be less wind, and for barley and wheat it'd be more, and all the rest of it. So it took a little bit of experimenting. So here I am, and I don't remember in 1960. I was born in 49, so you can figure out how old I was. I went out there, and I was driving the tractor, and my dad was back there, and with a scoop shovel, he was checking to see what overflow there was coming out the back end, and we got to do some adjusting because we're throwing grain over type thing, eh? And we got it down so it was just perfect type. So I did all of the combining until I left there in 76. I run the thrashing machines, are not the thrashing of the combines and everything like that. But
I bet you the combines are, I'm thinking combines like nowadays combines.
Oh, no comparison whatsoever. No. Oh, I mean, it was.
How wide did you swath for the combine back then?
Well, we had a 14-foot swather.
Oh yeah,
and that's a good thing. I'm glad you brought that up because for years we had 3 tractors with mowers, and I was talking about earlier about horse mowers. They only had a 5-foot sickle on them.
Yeah.
Well, with the tractors, it had an 8-foot cut bar type thing,
yeah,
and we used to have 3 of these, and so it took 3 guys out there with tractors and round to the field cutting all of this stuff, and one tractor was a little faster than the other one, and I mean, it's just it was a lot of fun. I'll put it that way. Go out there and cut hay, and then the next day you go out there or maybe while we're cutting, someone else is over there raking up what we had cut yesterday type thing, eh? And so we could go through, but all of our hay was all loose. Like I said, we had loose haystacks, and it was hauled into the feedlots, and everything was loose. And then when we bought this baler, basically the baler was only used for bringing the crops or the hay from out in the community, because we didn't want to, it's a whole lot more work. Like I was saying, that when the Gleason, they had to load all this stuff up and haul it in and unload it again type thing. Well, with bales, it was a whole lot easier process. So anyway, just lost a little trend of thought there with the combine now. We baled up all of the straw behind, but the very first year, we had a number of and I don't even remember, I think we had 18 granaries, but they weren't all that big. And these were some of these were left over from the CPR experimental farm. But then my dad and uncle and my grandfather built a bunch more granaries. And so basically we ended up with quite a few, but they weren't big. Well, that was fine when we had a thrashing machine, because we didn't thrash all that much. We only thrashed maybe a fraction of what our crop was, because we still had the bundles.
You were bundling and baling.
Well, we were just bundling and feeding the bundles to the sheep type thing, eh? But when you thrash, now all of a sudden you got this big stack of straw, and then you have some of this grain. And of course, you always need some grain, because we didn't feed bundles to the lambs. That was hay, so you had to have grain to feed the troughs. So you got the feedlot with the hay. Then in the morning and in the afternoon also, you go and scoop grain out and put into troughs, and then you open the gate and the lambs go in and eat the grain. And while they're eating the grain, you're forking hay down for them to come back to, and so they spend the day eating hay here, and twice a day they get to go in and have some grain. So you have to have X amount of grain beside. Well, with the thrashing machine, like I said, we only did just a fraction of our crop, and we were getting, and we were actually buying grain also from other people who were hauling it in, and this and that. And with sheep, a lot of times we wanted wheat. Well, we didn't grow wheat. I can remember twice that I actually combined wheat on our place, but that was many years later type thing. But and that was after we had the sheep were gone and everything. We decided that we could grow so much feed that we would just maybe put a quarter into wheat. And of course, the production was unbelievable. We always had really good crops. And but anyway, the very first year that we had the combine,
Just sorry to say it, interrupt, but you had really good crops. I'm just imagining it's because of the so much work that you guys have put into now you finally got some irrigation. So all of that took years. Then you've been fertilizing from your own
yeah,
manure and every other farmer, anything or a feedlot around that you could.
yeah,
Now you've developed this land to a place where it's producing.
it's producing it, and it produced unbelievable.
Oh, really?
Oh, unbelievable.
Because at first you were in the drought of the 30s.
Exactly right.
30s with nothing.
Exactly
Now
right.
you got crops.
There was one year, we were so busy. This is in 1972.
Yeah.
There was 4 of us ranchers. There again, it was dry down in the grassland and everything. And so 4 of us ranchers, we got permission, and I mentioned the British bloc before with the sheep.
Yeah.
We got permission to take a bunch of cattle back into the British bloc for the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And the deal was, like when we had the sheep, we actually just went in on the west side. And then we were only in there for 2 weeks, and we had to move them out, and they lit the grass on fire type thing. But we were kind of concerned about that with the cattle in 1972. But we had to take them all the way up what was called the Jenner Road across, and then back down in on the east side of the British bloc type thing. And the government had some krells back in there and all the rest of it. And I think it was probably the same krells that I had showed all the picture of all the horses that my dad,
Oh, yeah.
70,000 head of horses
Yeah.
type
Yeah.
thing. And I think it was the same krells because they were old. But we ran all these cattle back in there in 1972. So, like, I spent a summer back there. There was four of us basically that spent the summer just with cattle and all the rest of it. But at home, it was less than that because I did the big percentage of the farming and everything. So we hired a guy. The name was Walter, and he did some custom cutting of alfalfa and everything. He had a Heston haybine and all the rest of it, and it was a 14 foot header on it and that. Because most of the farmers down there that he was actually cutting hay for, their crops were not as good as ours. But I was there the day that he pulled in, and he unloaded his haybine and everything, and he's looking at the crop, and he said to me, man, he said, that's a pretty good crop. And I said, yeah, it's good, all right. Well, he took a swath down, and it's a half a mile, and he came back again. He got out, and he came to me, and he had this smile on his face. He said, I've never cut a crop this heavy in my life.
No, right on.
And he'd been doing this for a number of years.
Yeah, this was saying something.
This was really saying something. He said, I have never seen an alfalfa crop this heavy in all my life. I said, well, it's a good crop. I said, but it's pretty normal for us type thing.
Oh, yeah.
And I really look at it, nowadays they use a lot of commercial fertilizers and all the rest of it. And like I said, we hauled the manure out there and we worked it in and all the rest of it. And our soil was good and our land was leveled where you take and you put water on this, and it takes anywhere between, depending on how dry it is, but 10 to 12 hours for this water to go between 63 feet down half a mile, and it's soaking in. Like you see the bubbles, you'll go in there and you see it bubbling and bubbling, and it doesn't move that fast, and you got these streams of water coming on there. You know it's soaking in.
Yeah.
So between the two, the fertilizer, actually the three, the fertilizer, the water, and the heat.
Mm-hmm.
In southern Alberta, we had a lot of heat.
Mm-hmm.
I still go by Fahrenheit. We used to, and when we're handling bales and forking bundles and all the rest of this stuff, down there, I can remember many days, what's the temperature today? Oh, it's 104 today.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. Anywhere's between 90 and 100, and I think the hottest that we were out there working was, that I can remember, was 106. I mean, it's, and you're sweating, and literally you're drinking. I remember my Uncle Steen and one hired man we had, Kel, his name was, Cal Russell. Cal smoked and my uncle never did, but my uncle was never a big man or anything like that. And they wore long underwear year round. I mean, it was a cotton long underwear, but they wore it. And here we are out there with, you know, as little clothes as we possibly can. And my mother used to get mad at me all the time. Cyril, you got to wear a hat. You got to wear a hat. I hated wearing a hat. And I sweat so much that I don't know if you know anything about welder's caps, but they're basically they're homemade, and
they're a beanie type of thing.
They're kind of a beanie, and I'd wear it to keep the sweat out of my eyes type thing, or just a sweatband, because I sweat like you wouldn't believe, and my cousin also. And I'll tell you another story there. But anyway, we'd sweat so much. The Arctic cats, or Arctic, whatever they were a cooler. They were about this big around, and they're insulated. And they hit about that high type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'd fill two of those up. This is just for two of us. We'd fill two of those things up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And by noon, one of them would be empty. So at dinner time, we would fill it up, and we'd set it. We had a walk-in freezer, so we'd set it in there to get it nice and cold and everything. And in the afternoon, we would eat. My cousin and I could each drink one of those things dry, because you're drinking so much water and you're sweating so much type thing, eh? And we're healthy because of all of this type thing, eh? So yeah, with the temperatures, and we're physically working. We didn't have the mechanized stuff that they have today. Like you were saying, you're introducing, combines and tractors with air conditioning and all the rest of this stuff, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And with satellite, you set it down, go on the road, and you can have your lunch, and you can read a book and whatever. And when you get close to the end, it beeps at you, and you turn it around and hit it the other direction, and away it goes again type thing.
Yeah.
And I did a few years ago. I was working for a farmer up here, and he had one in his swather. And I went, wow, if I would have had that when I was still back on the farm for diking and all the rest of this, for diking, putting in these every 63 feet, I used to line it up with a post down at the end, and between me and the post down there, I would have about 4 flags. So you'd head out for a straight line. You'd head down. You get to that pig, you'd stop. You'd walk across, place it in, go down to the next one, walk across, and you do that. And then on the way back, you do the thing. So it would take me forever to do a quarter of land just diking.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, you could do it in an hour, a quarter. What would it do to take me all day to do?
Wow.
Oh, and it's unbelievable the how everything is advanced. Now, I'm not saying that it's better, because I was saying, when we ran the cruise and everything like that, it was fun getting together and visiting and all the rest of it. It's not like us truckers. We get together and we talk about trucking.
Yeah.
When we were together as farmers and everything, we're talking about it. Maybe the horses that we broke, or the horses that what the horse did today, or whatever, or how the tractor is running, and it's like I miss a lot of that stuff. It's just not the same type thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about hauling all of these bales from the community into our place and everything, and paying these farmers a good price for the straw and for picking up their hailed crops and all the rest of it. Even just a few years ago, I used to go down and visit my brother there every year, and I would stop in and see maybe 6, 8 different people in the community. And I had a number of them that would say to me, man, the Gleddies, they helped us out so much. We got hailed out how many years in a row, and we could always depend on the Gleddies to come and pay us a good price for our crops, or to get all this feed, because they had so much livestock and everything like that needed feed. And so we were helping them out, and they were helping us out type thing, eh?
That's neat.
Going about hail, it was kind of funny. The Lord blessed us in so many ways. The farm that was just north of us, it was owned by Murray Cattle Company, but it was leased or rented out to a different outfit. And they were Roman Catholic. And of course, us being Protestant and all the rest of it, they used to give us a hard time. There was a few years that I can remember, and it wasn't every year, but there was a few years where they actually got hailed out, and the hail stopped at the fence line.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to laugh at them and say, well, that's what we got a fence there for, to stop the hail. We don't want hail, so we have the fence there to. But they would say, we go to the wrong church.
There's something wrong here.
There's something wrong here. We get hailed out, and you don't get hailed out, type thing, eh?
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, we could go up there and we could pay them a price to get the feed from them, type thing, eh?
Yeah.
So we were helping them out, but they could never figure out how come we were always blessed, and they were hailed out or whatever, type thing, eh? But yeah, it's just another story. But like I said, my uncle, he could not believe the very first year that we combined, we didn't have enough granaries. It was kind of like, what are we going to do with all this grain that we have, you know? And so basically what we did is we changed our rotation to more alfalfa and less grain, because we were just getting way too much grain. And there was a few years there where we actually sold grain. We had so much grain.
Neat.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. My uncle couldn't believe, man, did we actually waste that much grain, or did the sheep actually get all that grain? But no, he realized that having the bundles and everything for all those years, even though it worked well, because we could go out there and we could just fork off the bundles and they would eat everything. It was good for the time, but things progressed. And then
sorry, Cyril, I was going to ask you a question just while we were talking about weather before.
Yes.
Because here we are in beautiful Canada, which has some pretty high variations in weather, and we're talking about that. So in summertime, we're also known in Alberta for our hailstorms.
Yes.
So you're dealing with that. You're dealing with summertime, temperatures working out there at 105. But now, wintertime, you got temperatures of?
Now that really varied. I don't remember the year, but I do remember at Christmas time. I used to always look forward to Christmas time because I didn't like school. First of all, I didn't do well in school because I didn't like school. And I can remember this one Christmas, it was -40 the whole time. And
that's Fahrenheit you're talking. Yeah,
you're
Fahrenheit -40.
Because 40 is basically the same.
Oh, that's where they kept up.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was -40.
I'll put it on the screen here.
Yeah, exactly right. But it was -40 for the whole Christmas and New Year's holiday out of school. And my job every day, we had the big herd of cows on one side of the fence, and then we had a whole bunch of yearlings and that on the south side of the fence, and then of course our feedlots with the steers and the replacement heifers and this and that. But actually, these pumps, we had 2 stock ponds up there, and we had 2 pumps and everything, and there was no electricity. Years later, we put electricity in, but this particular year, there was still no electricity, so we had this gas motor, and we'd go up there, and I'd take it out of the truck, and I'd hook it on there and put the belt on and everything and start it. And then I'd build a fire in the tank to thaw the ice and everything like that. And I would do it in this bin or this trough, and then I'd go around to the other one and pump it up. And then I'd come back and pump this one up, and I'd go back and pump that one up, and then I would go home for dinner. And after dinner, I would come back and I would do the whole thing all over again.
Yeah. Just
pumping water because when it's cold like that, livestock drink a whole lot more than they do when it's hot, if you can believe that.
Oh. Okay.
I mean, it sounds crazy, but yeah, they do. And of course, like they said, my grandfather was told, oh yeah, you don't have to water sheep in the wintertime because they can eat the snow, type thing. Well, there was a lot of winters that we didn't have snow, so you had to break ice or whatever, or pump water and everything for them. But that one particular winter, I spent the whole winter or Christmas holidays and New Year's holidays because it was so cold and all the rest of it. But then again, I can remember...
You still preferred that over school?
Oh yeah, oh definitely, yeah. I've
You're
been
hands-on.
I've been literally a hands-on guy all my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoyed working and everything like that.
Yeah.
But I can also remember Christmas Day, just out in shirt sleeves playing football. No snow,
Because you got
weather's.
Chinooks in that
Oh yeah, the
country,
Chinook.
right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where the weather kind of, there's a warm front comes in from the mountains. So there's,
From the southwest. Yeah, definitely. I'll tell a story about that. But there was a lot of winters where it just never ever got that cold, and we never got a lot of snow, and that was one of the problems that we had in southern Alberta. You know, if you don't have snow, you don't have runoff.
mm-hmm.
And like I said, when we had to move those sheep back into the British block, 62, if I remember right, uh, there was no runoffs. There was no water in the water holes even. It was so dry. It was unbelievable. We actually hauled water all the way down there and had water troughs for the sheep because there was no water in the water holes type thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we dug a lot of water holes for the livestock. So when we had the land taken away from us, it was actually bettered for the government because we'd done all of this improvement.
Yeah.
And the amount of money that we got from the PFRA didn't even pay for the fuel. But any money that you can get from the government is always a benefit type thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it was so dry down there that we literally I can remember we dug this one hole dam, and we got some runoff in it in the spring, and we had one sheep herder down there, and he was his name was George. He would come and work for us in the summer and everything, and in the wintertime, uh, because the lambs were brought home and in the feedlots and everything, we could get rid of a sheep herder type thing.
Yeah.
So in the wintertime, we only had maybe 2 herds instead of 3 herds, and sometimes 4 herds. Um, But anyway, George was there, and we had him beside this one new dugout and everything, eh? And my brother was shocked because he was down there doing something with the sheep, and my uncle was there too. And all of a sudden, George, he just takes off his clothes and he dives into this water and has a swim and all the rest of it, eh? And it kind of shocked my uncle and my brother because they weren't used to, you just jump in one of these dams, because when they get older, now you got these bloodsuckers in there and all the rest of it. You wouldn't want to be in it.
Come out, be peeling
Exactly right. But this was a brand new hole and it didn't have all of that stuff in there. Eh? And we were just benefiting by that winter. We'd had enough snow that we actually got runoff and all of our water holes were full. So it was really dependent on weather. Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back into the Chinooks.
Yeah.
I can remember, coming home from school and it's cold, and I mean, it wasn't no -40 or anything like that, but they go -18, -20 type thing. And you come home and then you go in and have supper. My dad would come in for supper type thing, and he'd say, well, I can see his Chinook arch coming in from the southwest. And you didn't know if that was going to be a good thing or a bad thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And I can remember waking up in the middle of the night with the wind blowing. Like I said, we might have had 6, 8, 12 inches of snow. In the morning, you go out and you have nothing but water.
Really?
Literally.
Through the night.
It just takes it, and there's not a lot of water left because the Chinook just takes that moisture up. I remember one time, and this is many years later, when I was actually up here, and we were going down to visit with my father, and we stopped at Hannah. There was a rest stop there, and my kids were just exercising, and they were just small at the time, and they're exercising and everything. And I said, "Look at kids," and my wife also. I said, "Take a look there," and you could literally see the moisture leaving the ground and going up and forming clouds.
Mm-hmm.
That wind was just sucking the moisture up like you wouldn't believe, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And they've never seen that since, and I've never seen it since. But that was one time where I actually was able to show them how a Chinook actually works. It like when you watch that moisture, it just disappears. It just is sucked right up.
So you didn't like this. So this warm weather was never really a blessing. It's robbing you of your moisture that you're trying to save up for springtime.
Exactly right. Yeah, exactly right.
I never thought of that. I just thought it'd be a blessing to be warmer, but
yeah. We, like in our feedlots and everything around the yard, if we had a lot of snow, we didn't like that in the feedlots, because in the spring now all of a sudden we had water coming out of these places, and excuse the term, but we called it shit creek. You know, this stuff running down. It's like, where in the world is all this stuff going? You know, you'd think, well, if it was running to the ocean, it would be terrible, eh?
Yeah.
And we have all these in the irrigation country here. Again, you have spill ditches, and all these spill ditches are being filled with all of this runoff coming out of our feedlots and that, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And if it was a dry year, well, we didn't have that problem type thing. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, weather is such an important factor when you have livestock and grain. But like I said, now we're in irrigation country, and the hot weather and the moisture and leveled land, you couldn't better it.
Yeah.
You couldn't better it. It was unbelievable. We had so much feed. And after I left there, or just actually when I left there, we went from the ordinary bales that most people see, and now they see the round bales, which we never did. But we went from, excuse me, from the 16 by 18 by 38 inch bales, we went to the big 4 by 4 by 8s,
Mm-hmm.
which you don't fork. Not that
Yeah.
they have.
Now you got a good tractor, and it's
Exactly right. They have 6 big strings on them type thing, eh?
yeah.
And so we would just load them onto, and that was another thing. You know, basically, the tractor work. At one time, we had 12 tractors on the place.
Oh yeah.
Well, you take a look at it. You have three tractors on mowers.
Yeah.
You got another tractor or two on a rake. I mean, you got all of these tractors around, and some are too big to be out doing this. So you got all these varying sizes of. We had 2 M's, we had an MT, we had a 420, we had, you know, and up to 806s and, you know, 4020s and all the rest of this stuff. So you got a big variety of sizes of tractors. And when you're pulling this big baler now, it's a big 4-wheel drive tractor that's pulling this big baler that's making these big bales type thing, eh? And then you got a W14 case loader that's stacking these things. We used to stack them 2 wide and 3 high. And then we had a retriever that would come, and you could pick up all 6 of those bales and haul them and put them into stacks. And our stacks were half a mile long, 2 or 3 of these stacks. We had so much alfalfa.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was kind of like it was alfalfa country down there. They used to ship alfalfa. We never did. We actually, some years we used to have to buy, but we also
used it all.
Used
it all on your own ranch.
Basically,
Yeah.
There was a few years where I helped build Tyrol dehydrators, which made cubes, and they shipped that to. A lot of it went to Japan, even before we
those alfalfa pellets.
Pellets and cubes.
Oh, okay.
And just up here at Legal, they have a cubing plant type thing, eh?
Yeah.
And they make pellets there also. But I helped build Tyrol dehydrators. But before Tyrol dehydrators was built, I'm such a sucker. When trucking companies found out that I had a Class 1 license, and even before I was running big rigs, 18-wheelers and all the rest of the stuff, but it really kind of progressed when I got a license, and you had to be 21 at the time. Here I am, I'm living and raised and everything on a ranch, and we're working hard there. And after hours, these other outfits are calling me up to come and work. And there was many nights where I'd get a call at supper time. Someone didn't show up. Can you come and work at Tyrol dehydrators all night type thing, eh? Because they would during the haying season, they would run 24/7 type thing, eh?
Oh yeah.
So I'd go there and make cubes all night type thing, and then go home and work during the day. You know, it was crazy. But there they have choppers, so they're chopping this green feed and green alfalfa and everything, and they're hauling it in, and it's going through the whole process where they actually dry it and cube it and all the rest of this stuff, eh?
Yeah.
So I helped build that, and but before we built Tyrol dehydrators, we were actually hauling hay bales, and these are the smaller bales again. We're loading these trucks, and there again, I'm the only guy that's using a fork. I'm the only guy that's physically enough out of all of these farmers that we're working for that can use, and they're using the hook, and you got what we call bale chaps on. They only come to the knee type thing.
Yeah.
So you don't wear out your blue jeans.
See nose, yeah.
And I'm out there in shorts like this with a fork. Can you believe that? and no bale is touching my skin type thing, eh?
Yeah.
And I'm forking these bales, and a couple of these guys, when I first come out there with this fork, and they're going, "How in the world do you do that?" I said, "Well, here, give it a try," type thing. And you go, they're struggling. They can't lift this bale up, and I'm lifting it up, and I'm throwing it up on the truck or the rack or whatever type thing. We were hauling these bales into the railroad, and we're loading these bales into box cars. Well, can you imagine? Here it is, 90, 100 degrees, and inside these box cars, it's like 130.
And that
literally. And we're forking these bales into these things.
Yeah.
And we're stacking them in there.
Yeah.
And they're going to the coast to be loaded onto the ship to take across to Japan.
Wow.
That's what thyroid dehydrators ended up, we did with cubes type thing. That's why they built thyroid dehydrators type thing, because it was just too much work with all of these bales. But I did that one summer. You know, I spent basically 24 hours a day working with bales, forking bales and everything. And some of these
in a rail yard, too. Just imagine the heat.
It was terrible.
Open rail yard.
It was terrible.
Whew.
I remember we ran out of water, and I'm not a beer drinker. I was never raised as a drinking any of this stuff. It was never in our home or anything like that. And I can remember we were down there, and we're loading these box cars, and it's hot like you wouldn't believe. And a guy pulls up, and first thing we said, "Do you have some water?" He said, "Well, no, I just come from the bar." He said, "I got a 12-pack here." And we said, "Well, let's have it." You know,
if you're so thirsty.
It was just so thirsty. It was like, oh my God, this is so refreshing, you know. And I don't like beer.
Not a drinker.
And I don't even like beer, but I'll tell you what.
What's going to happen.
It was wet. It was wet. It went down like you wouldn't believe. And there was one other time that I can say that I was that dry. I don't know if you've heard of the National Dream, The Last Spike. Pierre Burton made the movie The National Dream, it's called.
Oh, yeah.
And what it was is, it was the story of putting the CPR rail line across Canada.
Wonderful.
And so when the movie got to the prairies type thing, a friend of ours was asked, and he ran horses. He leased out horses for parades. He leased out horses for all sorts of different things, trail rides and all the rest of it. And he got asked to supply the horses that were involved in making the rail line through the prairies. Here again, we go back to the Fresno and building the rail bed across the prairies and all the rest of it. And so we were asked if we would come and spend a day or two helping build this movie type thing.
Oh, yeah.
So my brother and I, we volunteered to do this. And the day that we were out there, first thing in the morning, we're kind of sitting there, and it's kind of like this. We're sitting there waiting, the sun is coming up, and it's warm and all the rest of it. And we're watching, they're filming, they got these horses and the Fresno and the tumblebug and all the rest of it, trying to build a rail bed and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And the first scene of the whole thing was a silhouette of these Indians sitting up on the hill watching what was going on, going through their prairies type thing, eh?
Yeah.
And they were having a terrible time persuading these Indians to get on these horses, and all they had to do is just sit up there. And we're kind of wondering, what in the world is going on? What's the world going on? Finally, they got it shot, and so then now they're taking the movie of building the bed and everything. And then where my brother and I got conned into is the railroad ties Now back there, you know, you take a look nowadays, they're all creosote, and they're fixed size type thing, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And they're heavy because of the creosote in there.
Mm-hmm.
Well, back then they didn't have this; they were just green logs.
Mm-hmm.
So here they come out and they've got these tree trunks, and they've sliced off basically the top and the bottom, but the sides are still got bark on them and all the rest of it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, can you imagine how heavy these things are?
Mm-hmm.
They're like 200-300 pounds each one of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And they have them on this flat car. And there was a couple of guys that they had, we were called the ground crew type thing, eh? Where we're laying the rails and but my brother and I got conned into very quickly of taking these ties off of this flatbed and going over and dropping them down so the rails could be laid on top of them type thing, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
So we did a couple of pre-takes type thing, and the guys that were up on the flat car, we said, just push them over to us. Don't lift them up. Don't try to be assisting us. Just push them over and we'll take them and we'll go put them down. Because a couple other guys, they said, oh, you do this type thing. Well, they couldn't haul these things. They were too heavy for them. They couldn't carry them.
Yeah.
So my brother and I, we got conned into, we were able to carry. We should have faked it. I mean, oh no, it's too heavy for me type thing. But no, we didn't. So anyway, we did a couple of practice rounds, and we told these guys, don't lift them up. Just push them over. We'll take them off and all the rest of it. Well, now the camera is in our face. Literally, it's in our face. And step back. We go into this container. It was a container where they have all of the clothes. CBC brought all of these old clothes. And guess what? They're all wool. We're out there. It's 100 degrees. They're wool shirt, wool pants, hat, the whole works. And of course, they got black spray paint, and they're making us look dirty and all the rest of this stuff with the black spray paint and that. And anytime that we weren't doing anything, we were trying to sit into the shade, which was under the rail cars type thing, eh? Mm-hmm. It was so hot out there. And there again, we ran out of water. They had a 500-gallon tank with water, and everybody was drinking so much water that we used all the 500.
Wow.
And some of it went to the horses that were out there, because it was probably 10, 12 horses or whatever they had out there. But
so you're actually in this movie. It's a documentary movie.
Yeah.
And you're in it.
Yeah, pure.
And I hope I can find that footage.
Yeah, it's the National Dream is what it's called. Yeah.
Okay.
But anyway,
what?
We told these guys how many times, don't try to assist us. Just push them over. We'll take them off of there.
Yeah.
Well, when they're taking the shot, and like I said, the camera is like 3 feet away from us, right on us type thing, eh? And my brother goes to grab this thing, and of course they're heavy, so he goes back like this. And the guy had lifted it up, and he dropped this tie, and it crushed my brother's thumb. And the funny thing of it is that the camera shows him grimace, but they don't know the real reason why he grimaced. It was because his thumb was crushed. Yeah. So anyway, we get through everything, eh? And his thumb is half the thickness of what it should be type thing, eh? And
he just worked through it.
And we worked through it type thing, eh? And because we had no way to get back to Brooks or anything like that, because we'd come out on a bus type thing, eh?
Yeah.
And we didn't even tell anybody. We just kind of wrapped it up with some of the stuff that we had there and waited till the end of the day. But we ran out of water.
Yeah.
So one of the guys here again said, "Oh, I know where there's some beer, eh?" So he went and got this beer. Well, it was really bad because it was like lukewarm, eh? Yeah. But it was liquid type thing, eh? So yeah, we kind of shared how many ever it was, but yeah, it was just hot. Like the weather down there can just get unbelievably hot, type thing. So that was another thing that we did in the hot weather. But you could never predict what kind of weather was going to be. Our summers are probably a month and a half to 2 months longer than what they are up here. Our crops are always in way before they even start up here.
Oh, yeah.
When I was still back in school, we were always done harvest by the time school started. It was all done in August type thing, completely. We used to be done before everybody else.
Yeah, we're up in here in northern Alberta. They're going right through September.
Yeah,
Easily.
and into October for sure. Yeah, yeah, exactly right. And then I used to, when we were done on our place, like I said, we didn't have a whole lot of acres, but I would go out and help my two uncles. And there was one year where it was so wet for so long type thing that Halloween, October 31st, we actually got the last bit of his grain off of there, and the snowflakes were falling and never did disappear after that type thing. So if we wouldn't have got it off then, we'd had to do it in the spring type thing. But that doesn't happen too often in southern Alberta. But yeah, our weather conditions are so crucial. But anyway, my uncle in 1970, he started talking about selling. He wanted to sell out. He was 65 years old, or going to be 65 years old, and he wanted to retire. And his health wasn't as good as what my father's was. And my uncle didn't want to sell to us anything like that. And we had buyers. Harry Viner, who was the mayor in Medicine Hat a number of different times, he'd come to my dad and uncle many times and said, I want to buy your place. I want to buy your place type thing. And of course, my dad and uncle didn't want to sell. Well, then all of a sudden, when my uncle decided that he wanted to sell, Harry Viner was on the doorstep. And my dad was determined that my two older brothers and myself had to buy out my uncle.
Oh, yeah.
And in hindsight, that was a bad thing to do, but I went along with it. Both my brothers were married at the time, and they each had 3 daughters. And so we ended up buying out my uncle. That was in 1971. In 74, we ended up buying out my oldest brother. And then in 76, my brother and I were down east moving cattle, and we're riding along, and of course, there's only 2 people on horses, but we always used to say, well, Barb is riding on that side, Barb Wire. Because we had I think I mentioned it before, we had what was called the Gaza Strip. It was between the CPR rail line and the Trans-Canada Highway.
Oh, yeah.
And you could see each, and it was a long strip. It was like 12 miles long type thing, and we had all of that land. So when we were pushing these cattle and we we're going to cross the highway, Trans-Canada Highway, and so we got Barb riding on that side, and so my brother and I are on this and just moving these cattle along. And with cattle, you can chase them. With sheep, you can't chase them. I was saying there last time.
Yeah.
You got to lead sheep, and you can chase cattle. And in fact, you can't even lead cattle, to be honest with you. I guess you could if you had
I'm trained, I guess.
Have them trained type thing. Yeah. But anyway, we're riding along, and so I said to my brother, and the reason that we were talking about this is that he didn't want anything to do with the farming end of it, and he only wanted to do the cattle end of the whole thing. But I was always out helping him, so I wasn't getting my farming done, and he wasn't willing to come and help me bale and all the rest of the stuff. It was like I had to break his arm to get him to do that. Sure, we could feed the cows and he could fork bales in the wintertime and the fall time and everything like that, but he always had a reason why he had to go out and check the cows and this and that. So I'm doing the farming and the haying and all the rest of the stuff, and it was a good thing that Dad was still around because I could get him to help me. And we hired a young lad who actually was the son of one of our herd men that we had previously, and he stayed there.
Generation of employees.
Yeah, exactly right.
That's pretty neat.
And he actually quit school. I think he was in grade 9 when I left there in 77, actually in November of 76, and I went to Kenny and I said, you want to quit school and everything like that? I said, I'll give you a full-time job. And he was living in one of our houses anyway, so his parents were. So anyway, he quit school and he worked for us until we sold out in 2000 type thing.
Oh, yeah.
But my brother and I were riding along, and I said to my brother, I said, you want to buy me out? I said, let's make a deal. And he looks at me and he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, well, I've been offered Gary Alford wants to hire me on the paramedic service in Brooks type thing, eh? And I said, you and I don't get along here very well. I said, I end up having to do the maintenance and most of the farming and all the rest of it. And you want me to also help you with the cattle and everything like that.
Yeah.
I said, maybe it's time for us to leave type thing. And he said, well, I can't afford to buy you out right now. And I said, well, no, I'm not married or anything like that. I said, but when I get married, I said, then I want to get settled type thing.
Mm-hmm.
So long story short, in 2000, I actually got paid out and everything like that. So it was, we split the sheets back in 1976 and I came to St. Albert. Well, first of all, to Brooks and worked on the paramedics. That's where I got my paramedic training and everything was when I was there. And then the remainder of it when I got to St. Albert. And of course, in paramedicine, you never end. Every year you're taking courses and upgrading and all the rest of it like that. And even the fire department, every day you're training. Every day you're on course or work, you're training and all the rest of it. You never get done. And so I really had a change of life.
Yeah.
When I left the ranch, and actually, from the time I left in 76 until 2000, or actually I should say go back to 90, because there was a lot of stuff that went on from 90 to 2000 that I wasn't involved in the ranch anymore. But before that, I used to go down and spend October. His birthday was on the 7th and mine was the 17th. We always spent our birthdays together and we got along very well and worked together and this and that. And I missed it. I really didn't want to leave the ranch or anything like that. I enjoyed the farming end of it. I didn't really like the cattle end of it, even though, I spent many hours on horseback and all the rest of it. And he was more the ride in the truck, and I was more of the ride on the horse type thing.
Oh yeah.
And so I just decided that it was time to pull the pin and move on.
That
But
part of your past.
and now, yeah, exactly. I was all part of my path, but so many changes that I saw over the years that I've shared. We went from horse and wagon to horse and pulling a mower and it was kind of like and then all of a sudden a tractor and a binder and tractor and combine, and it was kind of a real progression type thing, eh?
Yeah.
But I have a picture of a thrasher machine. I have a picture of these things, and I have a picture that shows 4 teams of horses with bundles, and that was the last year that we ever handled bundles.
Oh yeah.
Because we didn't need bundles anymore because we sold the sheep.
Yeah.
So that was the last that we did the binder and the bundles and the sheaves and all the rest of that stuff. And then we went to a combine and baler, and everything got modernized, and I left. And
Progression. What things you seen?
yeah, over all those years. Yeah, exactly right. So when I left there, I was 27 years old, 26 years old. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and I kind of kept my fingers in it for a period of time, and then I just totally, everything is history type thing. And the progression that I've seen in farming and ranching since then, it's kind of like I go, wow, I could just about go back into it and still do it, even though I'm not physically as fit as I was then. Everything is so easy nowadays.
Right.
I take a look at
physically demanding for sure.
I take a look at these farmers and I go, you're not very good shape for being a farmer. Because I saw it from a whole different aspect. Like I said, we were forking bales.
Yeah.
Everything we did was physical. It wasn't until just the last few years that we bought a stack liner where you could stack the bales type thing, and of course I ran that. It was like, wow, this is easy. You know, it doesn't matter if it's 100 degrees out here. I'm sitting in and it didn't have air conditioning, but you know, it was, you have the windows open and away you go type thing. And this is a breeze. I don't even have to handle a bale anymore type thing, eh? And that's when I left. Yeah, it's like left it all behind.
You must have been in incredible shape as a young man, heaving those bales. Eh? You said how tall?
6'4".
You're 6'4". What do you think your weight was back then?
Oh, it was consistently anywhere between 230 and 235.
And that's no fat, I bet.
That was no fat. I had absolutely no fat. You know, I have a picture.
That's pretty neat.
I have a picture. A friend of mine, and he actually lived in one of our houses, my grandfather's house. He rented off of it for a while, and his wife was kind of into horses, and she had a horse there. And he used to ride along with us once in a while. He worked for Chevron Standard, and he and his brother had been into rodeo and this and that, but he was working for Chevron, and he was into leather work, and he's the guy that got me into doing leather work. I make belts and all the rest of it. And he said, "How come you don't have any shops?" And I said, "Well," he said, "Why don't we make some?" So we actually made a set of chaps for myself and for my brother Lyle, and I have pictures of them now. I hear about 2 weeks ago, a girl where I load down at Vanscoy. She's really into horses. Her and her boyfriend, they have horses and this and that, and she's into doing all of the equestrian stuff and that, and she worked at a stable part-time, and I shared some of my experiences over the years type thing, eh? And she goes, "Oh, wow." I said, "You know, I should show you my shops." And she goes, "Oh, really?" "Yeah." I said, so I heard that she had handed in her 2-week resignation type thing, and her last day was going to be the 5th. So I said, and she got a hold of me and she said, "There's a load on the 5th. Are you going to be here? It's my last day." And I said, "Yeah, I'll be there." So I took my shops down to show her. Well, she never showed up that day. There was a bit of a problem between management and her, and so she never showed up until later. But I tried to put them on. It was kind of funny. I was 34 waist at the time, and I'm 42 waist now. So there's a little bit of a difference, eh? And even though the back of them, you can adjust the size through the laces, the front has a buckle, belt and buckle. Well, the two didn't quite meet.
Yeah.
So I've gained a little bit of weight since then, and no, I could not grab a fork and fork a bale today. That is for sure. I've got 270% tears in this right shoulder, and yeah, it's like I just don't have the strength that I used to. But you know, when I first came to St. Albert with the firefighters and paramedics type thing, I had no trouble going through the physical that they had. I was looked at by some of the guys, and they went, "Wow, you don't look as strong as what you show," type thing. I could do a whole lot more than, and I'd tell them, you know, I used to fork bales, and they go, "No way, you don't fork bales." Well, one of the guys actually has a farm on the side, and I went out, and when I had the deer farm, and I went out and bought some bales from him, and I was still in fairly good shape at the time, and I could actually still fork a bale for him, and he couldn't do that.
Yeah.
You know, type thing. And he'd been born and raised a farmer and still is on the farm today type thing. And he said, I've never been able to do that, and I'll probably never, ever be able to do that type thing. Eh? So it's kind of interesting. Yeah, I was in pretty good shape when I was, but everything, like I said, was physical at that time.
Well, you, Cyril, what's your age now? How old are you today?
Next month, I will be 76.
Yeah, right on. And you're still working?
And I'm still working.
Truck driver now.
Yeah. Yeah, not as much. I've been cutting back. I've been telling the boss that,
well, 76 might as well cut back on work. Start cutting back on work.
Well, I've been retired out of the fire department for 19 years.
Oh yeah.
And I've been on.
Picked up another career. Couldn't stop working.
Well, I've only been unemployed for 3 days, and that was by choice, and that was between jobs.
Yeah.
When I first retired from the fire department, in fact, the year before I retired, I had to use up my holidays because we were so busy at the fire department and that I would apply for holidays and they wouldn't be accepted. type thing. And so it took me a year to work off the holidays. So my wife and I took off. We worked for Bison for 3 years. We were going to do it for 4 years, but it was affecting my health. I wasn't getting enough exercise. And so it was kind of like, for the first year, I'd work my 2 10-hour days, my 2 14-hour nights, and then we'd take off for 4 or 5 weeks, come back, and I'd work another tour, because while you're on holidays, you're still accumulating holidays. So it took me a whole year actually to work everything off.
Oh, yeah.
So I left in March of 05, and no, that's not right, in whatever it was. And then I retired the next year, and we lived on the road. We would only come home if the kids wanted to see us, or if we had a doctor's appointment or whatever. We did all of our resets on the road, wherever we're at, in Georgia or whatever. So we saw 44 states, 9 provinces, and the territories over those 3 years that we're on the road. And then when I actually retired, the day that I was, because we'd leased a truck, the day that I was taking the seats out that I had put in there, better seats. When you lease a unit, you get the cheapest seats type thing, even though the truck is good. It was just, so I had purchased these seats. They were $900 a piece installed, if you can believe that. So they're pretty good seats. And I was taking them out to put it back in and the phone rang, and it was a guy that said, so when did you say you're retiring or quitting with Bison? And I said, well, today is my last day. He says, well, can you come work for me tomorrow? So for 2 months, I went and worked for Alberta Highway Service, running a track hoe. So, and you know, here it is, it's in the fall again. And so the first job that I had, we were actually covering a hazardous material waste site. And so I was running this track hoe, and we were rolling out these long rolls of plastic, and they were welding this stuff up, and then it was going to be covered by earth, and all of this hazardous waste was underneath. So I did that for a couple of weeks, and then I was sent up north, Athabasca, to dig a hole, and we were sloping the sides of the highway too. But here, you know, I'm clawing out 3, 4, 5 feet of frost with a claw, and then I'd take the claw off and put on a bucket and fill this muddy earth into a metal box. And after every 3 loads, I'd have to scrape out the box because it was freezing in there. And the boss came out there. It was on a Tuesday. He came out there, and I said, I quit. And he said, no, you can't quit. I said, I quit. And he said, well, can you stick around until Friday? And because we would only get off every other weekend type thing. And I said, well, okay, but I'm not running the hoe. So he got one of the guys, someone else, to run the track hoe, and I run a truck dump box. And I worked from Tuesday to Friday, and Friday night we went back to Edmonton, and I parked the truck, and because they even give me my own truck. They were going to make me a foreman. This is crazy. After 2 weeks of working there, they were going to make me a foreman. I guess it's the type of person that I am, or whatever. I know how to manage, and I know how to do a whole lot of things. Even though when I was in the fire department, I was held back from 2 promotions because of I stood up for truth and my faith. The chief actually called me into the office one day, and he said, so you know so-and-so? And I said, yeah. And I said, yo, I know him, and because of his position even in the city and everything, I knew him from that. And he said, well, if you go to the same church, that's one reason I don't like you, type thing. And so that was one mark against me. And then I actually stood up. He wanted me to do some things that I didn't think that were right. It's kind of like going through the whole pandemic. When you see police officers arresting pastors and all the rest of this stuff, I've actually asked these guys, what kind of morals do you have? What are your standards that you can go and do this? You leave taverns and bars open and bingo halls open and all the rest of the stuff, and you're shutting down churches and you're arresting pastors and all the rest of it. And that was what I stood up for through my whole career and my whole life. Is I stand up for what is right, what I believe is right.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, I've when John phoned me up to come here, I didn't even know his trucking existed.
Yeah.
And I'd had 2 days off when I got the phone call, because when I quit with Alberta Highway Service, I went the next day. I went and was working for a farmer, and it was harvest time, and that's when I got to actually run a swather that had the satellite where I could push the button.
Oh yeah.
And I thought, boy, this is beautiful. I could go farming very easily today with equipment like this.
Do it again.
And instead of a 14-foot header, that was another thing. You know, we only had a 14-foot header on our hay binds, and literally we had more bales per square foot on our places than you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
And because of the weather and the amount of stuff. And then to see all of these changes nowadays where you have this equipment that can just go and out there and do all of this stuff. I worked for that farmer until I worked myself out of a job. And I actually gave him an offer that I would come work for him year round, just 2 months off in the wintertime. And he said, well, I'm going to have to talk to my wife about that. And I asked his wife some years later, I said, did he ever talk to you about that? And she goes, no, he never talked to me about that. But he said, you would actually work for that? And I said, yeah. I said, I enjoy farming. I'd come back and I'd come and work for you for year round for that. It's just 2 months off in the wintertime, and the rest of the year I'd come and work. And so I had my 3 days off, and John had called me on my second day off and said, I want you to run to Vancouver. I said, I hate Vancouver. And he said to me, well, you go to the same place every time. And I said, it doesn't matter. I still hate Vancouver.
Yeah.
But I started, and it was really quite crazy when I came out here. I've never had an employer do this. And even though I was raised in a Christian family and a Christian ranch and a Christian environment all of my life, I came here. And the very first day that I came here, I couldn't even remember John's name.
Mm-hmm.
I'd only met him and Esther once, and that was at Tim Hortons when he was interviewing me to come and go work for him type thing, eh? And now I'm going to Vancouver, and I looked at him and I said, I'm sorry, I don't even remember your name. And he got a little bit worried. He told me this later. He said he got a little worried about me. What kind of a guy am I that he just hired? And he's sending me out with how many $100,000 unit type thing to Vancouver through the mountains and all the rest of the stuff, eh?
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I know, he's got his hand on my shoulder and he's praying for me. And I went, this is the right place to be. So I'm still working here, you know, how many years later? I was back in 2009 and I'm still here.
Well, it's God's plan.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, neat job.
Yeah. But this winter,
Knew you wouldn't retire. You had to stay busy.
Well, and I've cut back. You know, there was, when I first started here, I was running Vancouver twice a week. I'd go out Monday, come back Tuesday, go out Thursday, come back Friday. And I pulled into the yard here one night after a year and a half of running Vancouver. And he said to me, how would you like to go to Saskatoon? Well, sure. You know, it's a different run and whatever. That'd be great. And I've been running basically Saskatchewan ever since. And when I first started running Saskatchewan, I'd leave on Sunday afternoon and I'd get back Friday. Literally 5 trips back and forth, because it's only 5.5, 6 hours each way when the weather's good. I told Doug now that I just renewed my license because it comes due my birthday, which is October 17th. And I didn't know there for a little while because my health was kind of fading there for a little bit. I was having these dizzy spells and all the rest of it where I couldn't even hardly walk. And I didn't know if I was going to be able to continue on driving or anything like that. But with all of the prayers of everybody and all the rest of it, all of a sudden I'm back to normal. And here a week ago, I went and renewed my license.
All right.
And so it's good for another year. So I told Doug that, and he was just tickled pink. But I said,
All right.
when the snowballs come this fall, I said, I'm going to shut her down until spring. And he said, yeah. He said, I've been planning for that. You've told me that a number of times. So this winter, I don't plan on driving, but next spring again, I'll probably go back on the road.
I bet you will.
But I give up a lot of trips. I'm retired. I'm collecting pensions, and I give up trips to the other guys that need the work.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they're supporting families, and they still have payments for this and that.
Yeah.
I don't have. I'm not rich, but I'm rich in a lot of ways, and I don't need a job. I enjoy doing the job, and so I plan on this winter. My third book is actually going to be to me here in the next 2 weeks.
Oh yeah. All right.
October 1st.
You brought that up.
Yeah, and I was just notified here the other day that I can expect it by October.
Yeah.
They said the latest would be October the 14th. So right now you can actually order it over line at what's it called? The outfit that delivers all over the place. Amazon. Yeah. It's on Amazon right now. You can order it on Amazon.
Well, tell you what, I'll leave a link in the description in this video, so people will be able to.
Yeah, I have it on my phone. I can give it to you, and
great.
So I just sent it out to some friends here just the other day, and they already thanked me for it. They're going to be ordering my book and all the rest of it. So it's online now. You can get it, and that's a simple explanation of Revelation.
Right.
So it actually. Every verse, if you read the book through, you've read every verse in Revelation, and I've explained every verse in there. So it's if I remember right, it's about 426 pages or something like that. Yeah, it's quite a big book. Yeah, exactly right.
Well, Cyril, we're gonna have to wrap things up here. I sure have enjoyed talking to you. I mean, what an amazing life. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Everything that you've done, from a rancher to farmer to paramedic,
yeah, exactly,
firefighter, truck driver, author.
Yeah,
and you still got a lot left to do.
I haven't even touched a lot of the things. You know, when I was hauling out of Vanscoy, down there, and a lot of times I had to wait for half an hour to an hour and a half for paperwork. They were so bad down there because they were bought out by a different outfit.
Yeah.
And so the communications back to Winnipeg and everything was taking a lot of time. So, you know, how people are, and especially me, I, mentioned this and that and all the rest of it. And one of the people down there, they have this little round circle in their back pocket. And I said, you don't do that, eh? And yeah, unfortunately I chew. And I said, well, a couple of friends of mine, I have connections, I said, through Major Baseball and everything. I said, when I worked for the Blue Jays, you work for the Blue Jays? I said, yeah, I worked for the Blue Jays for a couple of years. And of course, they asked me what I did with them and all the rest of it. I said, these guys, they didn't chew snuff or anything like that, but some of their friends did, and how their gums were all rotted out and all the rest of it because of the snuff and everything. And so just through conversation, I remember when we were on the road with Bison, we're driving down the road, and my wife said to me, honey, one of these days, you and I are going to have to sit down, and we're going to have to write out all of the things that you have done.
No kidding.
In your lifetime, it would make a book in itself just of all the things that I've done, that I've been connected to, and all the rest of it. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think I mentioned that we had a white-tailed deer farm for...
barely that was in conversation. And I was like, oh my gosh. There's another video there, I bet.
Well, exactly. There's so much that, as was thinking just coming out this morning, oh shoot, we don't have time for this story or that story or whatever. And I really have. I've covered a lot of bases. I've been, over the years... just around.
Might have to hold up for this to get past us. That's way too loud. Don't move. I'll just check my phone. Yeah, everything's doing good. But we do got to wrap it up now.
Sure, yeah, right, no problem. I remember when I first came to St. Albert in the fire department, of course, you sit around and the guys would, so what brings you here, or what did you do before you come here, or whatever, eh? And I would say this and this and this. And one of the guys, he took great offense to the whole thing. And he called me in the back there one day and said, "You're nothing but a BSer, you know," and all the rest of it, eh? And I went, "Well, why do you say that?" "Well, there's no possible way that you could have done all these things." I found out later, a number of years later, and he's dead now, but he didn't believe that I was actually a 50% shareholder in Gleddy Ranches.
Mm-hmm.
And him and another guy, the guy that was telling me, they drove down to Tilly. They drove into the village of Tilly. They went into the hotel, and in the bar, they said, "Do you guys know Gleddy's?" "Oh, yeah. "Well, where's their place?" "Oh, just down the head. You run their land right at the end of the road." So they drove down. They drove into the farmyard, and there was a guy there. Well, it happened to be my brother. They pulled up and said, "Do you know Cyril Gleddy?" And Lyle goes, "Oh, yeah, that's my brother." "Oh, really? Does he own 50% of this place?" Yeah, he owns 50% of the place. This is how much, people can't believe that I've done so many things that I've actually done. But yeah, we'll call her quits here.
That's been a full life, that's for sure.
Yeah, it has.
Yeah.
It's been.
And more to come. You look great. You're in good shape.
Well, I'm feeling good right now.
Good.
So yeah, I don't feel like I'm going to be turning 76.
Yeah. Hey, folks, thanks for watching. You stuck through to the end. We're so happy. You're just the kind of person we want to have as a subscriber on this channel, so go ahead and hit that subscribe button below to get more stories about this great and beautiful country, the Great White North, from history to interesting people and interesting and exciting places. Thanks for watching. And Cyril, thank you, my friend. Put it there.
Right on. I've enjoyed doing it. Sure.
And do that.
Right on. Right on.